Now here's my friend Sheila Falls-Keohane, who was an All-Ireland fiddle champion as a teenager and has gone on to a great career as an educator at Wheaton College, an inspirational fiddle player, and as a classical musician in the Boston area.
So, if you were to see this in a book, if you heard the tune and you thought, I'd like to go back and see if I can learn that tune, in a book, to strip it down, it really just, the first line sounds like this. So, what you notice in the very first measure are a lot of B's. The first thing you can do is when you have two notes in a row, you can grace them and throw in the note after it too. So there you have the first slur. And the next three notes are also B, A, B. And you can put a roll there. And slur the next three notes. So the key here is that you have a few notes slurred. I think it's ideally that you would be slurring three notes rather than two. Two notes actually chops up the reel and makes it kind of boxy in 4/4. So if you can slur three notes here, and separate three notes, you have a nice combination of slurred notes and bowed notes. So it's good to organize this so that you know exactly, go back over it and organize it so that you know exactly what you're doing. So we have the graced notes and the roll, which is just, the roll, if you don't know what a roll is, it's just a note, the note after, back to the note before, and returning to the note. So just a turn. It's 5 notes and you always slur those 5 notes because it's just an ornament and it needs to be in the same bow and move quickly. So, slur, separate, and then 3 more slurred. And here we are back to the beginning material. Slur, separate, and that's the first line. Now, moving on to the second line. If you were to see this in a book, the second line would look like this. So, now you have to go ahead and put slurs in there. So, to organize your bow here you go, right away, that rule of thumb where you have 2 notes in a row. You can grace those 2 notes. And the same thing as the beginning, you can slur the note after it. And it becomes consistent with the first line of the tune. And if you noticed, I had the next few notes separate. Now, in the second measure, there's a triplet, which you can slur or you can bow it. So slurred or bowed, either way, whichever is easier. So for now, I'll bow it, slur it, and then there's this cross bowing. We call it a cross bowing. And the way you can recognize the cross bowing in a tune, if you were to look through a book of Irish fiddle tunes, you will see the cross bowing stands out because the same note keeps repeating. And the note is on the bottom, so in this case it would be the A string. and the top note changes. So if somebody who had maybe some classical training would look at that, and they automatically would slur that 2 and 2, just 2 and 2. But what makes the Irish groove work is that you slur it and by leaving the first note out of the slur. So there's the E left out. We're slurring from the bottom up. So always slur from the second note going up, from the bottom to the top note. Not from the top going, which seems logical, and it looks that way in the music, but you want to slur from the bottom. So and you can slur right from that crossbowing, right from that last bottom note into the next measure. So you smear the bar line, and you don't hear that. You don't hear that sudden, beat on the beginning of the measure. So slur from the bottom note. And this takes practice, and I probably would recommend that you use a little bit of bow, not a lot of bow. You don't want this out of control thing, because really when you get a reel up to speed, it really has to move. And so you can practice it like that with just a ½ inch of bow. So you'll find that what you need to engage is your wrist to get that moving. No arm, nothing bigger than that muscle, but your wrist. So this is the second line. Over the bar line. And in lines like that at the end, you could slur any 3 notes. You could do that in the middle, or you could slur from that B to the end. But 3 notes is ideal. So this is the second line. So moving on to the third line, if I were to break it down to the bare bones, it looks like this on the page. And you would repeat those 2 lines. So that entire line, those 4 measures. So how we would ornament this and slur this is, here we have the B's again. The best thing you can do there is just roll the B's, and it covers that whole section. And that covers all the B's, and you're here then at this figure. And the good thing about that is it already kind of speaks what you should do with that. You could keep the first 3 separate and slur the second 3. So, and then you could slur these 3. So as you noticed, I had 3 slurred, a couple separate. So it goes like this. Roll, separate, 3, slur, slur, separate, and here's the figure again. Slur, and you're at the end of that. Slur, slur, separate, slur. So those are the basic slurs that I would teach in the tune called The Musical Priest. And you can really go through other reels, look at books, and put your slurs in and be consistent about it, and practice it the same way every time. And eventually you'll be freer about how you're going to put slurs in tunes.